of on-the-spot productions, a talk show where the topics are provocative and the exchange is intense. What we've created here is a platform designed to be stimulating, explorative, agitative, and even expose a thing or two. To get you as close to the truth as possible, we ask the questions that you want answered. To my left is my co-host, Mr. Norman Graham. Norman?
Hi, and let's get right to it. Our first guest is Mr. Richard Taylor. Who is Mr. Richard Taylor?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Richard Taylor. I'm from the Bedford-Stuyvesant community, Black Brooklyn. Central Brooklyn, Community Board 3, Community Board 16, District 56, Assembly District 56, Councilmember District number 36. Those are the areas where we represent a majority of the black portion of Brooklyn, and we tend to deal with predatory lending there, anti-redlining, and deal with the elected officials that's in place.
Who are the elected officials in place?
Assemblyman Albert Van, Councilwoman Nat Robinson, Assemblyman Albert Van.
You said that twice.
Because they flip-flop the seats and they switch in backwards and forth. They did the flip.
Whoa, let me stop you right there. You're saying that Al Van flips back and forth. How do you think he's going to react to statements like
I
this?
can care less how he reacts. The truth is the truth. I mean, they did the switch last year. They ran again this year. He doubles as a district leader and a council person now. And Nat Robinson doubles as assembly person, as a female leader.
So tell me something. What are you going to do for the community of the 56th District?
Right, you get into office, what do you bring to the table?
Well, one of the things that we bring to the table is new ideas, fresh vision. One of the things we bring to the table is a difference of opinion on how they look at the present reading scores in the area, the present math scores in the area. They've been in office for more than 30 years, and I say to you that the reading scores have gotten worse. Some of those same schools I went to myself.
Okay, wait, hold on one second, right there. You just said a difference of opinion. Now, okay, does that necessarily mean better? Because, I mean, different is not necessarily better. How do you, what do you bring that we should say, I want Richard Taylor in that position?
Richard Taylor is against the present method that Assemblyman Van and Councilwoman Robinson is using to control the existing school boards before they've gotten rid of those school boards, I want you to know, simply because they wasn't functioning. And I want you to know that those are some of the authors of that school board system back in the days of Central Brooklyn when they started the school boards.
Okay, that's stated fact. Fine.
Okay.
What do you bring?
What I bring to it is fresh vision. I would bring new teachers, I would give the difference with the superintendents, or remove some of those people that's in place, because there's cronies. They're not put there because they had the best interest of the children. They're put there for political posturing.
The kids are not going to school. What will you do?
Well, one of the things you have to reach out to them. Why aren't they going to school? And the reason for them not going to schools are those issues being addressed. And there's various of issues there. And I want you to know that these individuals, they sit on various committees in the city council and up in the state. They know, they get the reports. They have the intelligence that's fed up to them. What do they do? A lot of information is being withheld from the community.
Let me get one thing in there. You're saying there's a lot of issues. Here's an issue. We've got classrooms overcrowded, outdated textbooks, so outdated that the child can open the book and see his mama's name in the book. Okay, we've got substandard material. The educational system itself does not provide for these children becoming CEOs of companies, but rather janitors, superintendents, and basically on the bottom rung of society. What do you bring? What can you do to make sure, or to try to ensure, that this is not perpetuated any further?
Well, you have to, and I don't want to keep dwelling, but you have to remove the present leadership. If the leadership that you have in place is supporting some of these things that you're saying, until you remove that, you're not going to solve the problem. One of the things you have to bring fresh leadership with views. Like, I'll be coming in under a different budget, different standards, so I have to have different ways. They're privy to information that we don't have.
Could you give me an outline, a synopsis of one of these ways, let's say with the outdated textbooks? I mean, obviously that's a financial issue.
You probably can go to corporate America, you can work with them on some things. I know there are institutions, there's people out there in corporate America that would love to get involved in those very issues that you're talking about. But they don't trust the people that's in place to give their money to them.
The Board of Ed has been abolished. As an elected official, what can you do now that we have this problem here with the Board of Ed?
Well,
what I'll say to you is, how do the parents feel secure in a new system? What can you bring to the
I'm not going to put the entire problem on the system. The parents have their roles to play too. But what I will say to you that the mayor is working under this thing with accountability. The principals and teachers and superintendents are going to be held more accountable now. The school boards will not have the ability to get interfere like they used to before. So now you have a different animal altogether, if you want to call it that, in terms of how they're going to deal with the educational system. I think it's better where it is now.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to On the Spot Productions. I'm your co-host, David Holder, and to my left is my co-host, Mr. Norman Graham. Our special guest for today is Mr. Richard Taylor. Mr. Taylor, in the last segment, you dropped a few names, you dropped a gauntlet with a few names that you mentioned, Al Van and Annette Robinson. Now you basically, if I'm understanding you correctly, you were saying that with the 30 years in office, they have done basically nothing. Is that correct? Am I to understand that that's what you're actually saying?
That's totally correct. I mean, that's the bottom line. You can check the record. They haven't done anything. The community's gotten worse. You can walk through Roosevelt Project, it's gotten worse. You can walk through Marcy House, it's gotten worse. You walk through Albany House, it's gotten worse. You can walk up and down the streets, the potholes are still there. Buildings are collapsing, affordable housing needs to be redone. I mean, it's just the whole district in total disarray.
How will you implement change? You have new problems like gangs, and that's a very serious issue to On the Spot, as well as to the communities. The gang problem is hurting the community and the schools. The kids are starting young. What could you do?
Now, years ago, gangs are nothing new. When I was coming up and you had the Period Buccaneers, Stompers, whatever you want to call them, they were there. But leadership came out and done things. They put things in place for our young people. Took them brothers off the street, trained them, gave them jobs. These are the sort of things we need to do. We got to tap into the money and the resources that's in place.
Where's the money at? In post 9/11, where is the money?
We have to find the money. This is our future you're talking about out there.
So with that right there, I'm jumping back to the other topic. Are you basically saying that Al Van, Annette Robinson, and the like are just basically collecting a check, like perhaps there's money there, but it's not being used properly?
That's exactly what they're doing. I don't see them doing anything to cultivate our young people. Our young people, there's nothing there for them.
So if I'm understanding you then, getting them out of office, that frees up money? Is that what you're basically
getting them out of office? Let me put it to you this way. They are representatives in the community. They represent you in Albany. They represent you in City Hall. They represent you in the Congress. Now, these individuals, when they represent you, they are there to address your needs and issues and concerns. They're not doing that. And if you have an individual there that's representing a community that's not addressing the issues and the views of the community, they don't need to be there.
Where the youth service budget has been slashed, what could you do?
This is not the first time a youth service budget has been slashed. So I wouldn't use that. I mean, they know what's available. They need to take what they have and get the best out of it. I mean, every year we're going to talk about budget problems. This year we're talking about 9/11. Next year we'll be talking about something else.
So then what I want from you now with that statement is some sort of synopsis of your strategy to make that happen.
My strategy was to number one, we have to put a training program in place to train our young people. You go on the corners and tell them to get off the corners and go where? Your community centers are shut down. Where are you going to direct these young people?
You know what, Mr. Taylor, I have a problem with going to city officials in our district, and while they're talking these things in talk shows, but you can't get them to do anything. I mean, what makes you different? We hear it all the time. If you talk to the young people and you ask them, the first thing they say is, the city council person is not going to do anything. The assembly person isn't going to do anything. We got programs they want, but there's young people out here that want to do things, and our district leaders are not answering the call.
And the young people are 100% correct. They're right. But you have people, some of those young people you're talking to are 18 years old, 19 years old, 20 years old. The same leadership has been present before they were even born. So they have every right to think that way, because all they know that when they knock on a councilman's door, they get no answer. They knock on assembly's door, they get no answer. They call that office, nobody responds. They go ask for a letter, nobody responds. They submit letter for recommendation, they get no help.
So now we have Richard Taylor in office. And you just mentioned implementing training programs. What kind of training programs? What are these designed
you get your resources. You have even a facility like this. You have people that is willing, that is dying to just get out there and help young people. It's not going to take $250 million to do this sort of a thing. A lot of times what it takes to train these young people is a far lot less. And I'll tell you something, you'll save money by your jails and your institutions. It's costing you more to incarcerate these young people than it would to train them and give them jobs, and once they're back working again, the more money's back on the roads and the tax levies go back up.
We'll be right back. Hi, and welcome back to On the Spot Productions. My name is David Holder. My co-host is Mr. Norman Graham. For those of you just joining us, On the Spot Productions is pleased to present to you a program that is provocative, stimulating, agitating, and even exposes a thing or two. Today on the hot seat is Mr. Richard Taylor. Mr. Taylor, I have a question for you regarding basically your loyalties as a political candidate. Now, what we had during the Dinkins era was a situation where Mr. Dinkins was sort of forced by the media to basically choose between his blackness, if you will, and the rest of the community that he represents. Basically, through the influence of the media, it was basically...
Justified.
I wouldn't say justified, but I would say that the media was looking to say, Dave, with this Crown Heights problem, what are you going to do about your people? What I want to find out from you is, as a black politician, how do you handle the imposed rules that try to dictate how you, as a candidate, decide which issues you'll stand up on, which issues you'll make a move on?
Well, when you're elected into office, you're elected on some of the issues that you put out there before the public, and the public votes on you on those issues. Once you become an elected official, most certainly you have to address a lot of issues that you did not run on, most certainly that you weren't confronted with. But what I will say to you is that the mayor, in his place, he represents a city that's multiracial, ethnic, and so forth and so on. So he had a lot of pressure on him. You cannot let the media dictate which way you should go. I don't know, it was a knee-jerk reaction the way the mayor reacted on some of those issues, but I would say to you that one thing you must realize, and I'm a strong believer that when you're black, you're black. When you're white, you're white. The Italians look out for Italian interests. The Irish look out for Irish interests. Jewish look out for Jews' interests. So I don't, you're black, and if you have black issues, your black people do expect you to deal with those issues as a black person, because they think they have someone in office as them, looks like them, walk like them, talk like them, think like them. So they expect you to deal with those issues as a black man.
Well, that's exactly my point. Now, there's in your position, you are expected to deal with your issues as a black man. But unlike your white counterparts or your non-black counterparts, you may not be called to task on how you deal with people from other races. For example, the Mayor Koch was not expected to go out of his way necessarily for non-Jews, but he was expected to deal with the Italian populace. But as a black candidate, Mayor Dinkins was expected to show that he's not overly concerned with the needs of black people.
How would you deal with it?
Right, basically.
How would you do it? A lot of us that knows from the era, depending on what age you are, you know that, and it's sad to say that when a black man has to work 10 times harder than a white man on a lot of issues. I mean, education is not always the issue. Matter of fact, because he's black, a lot of times he expects to be Jesus Christ and walk the water. You can put some of your same white components in office or white counterparts in office, and they have to deal with those same issues. Rudy Giuliani sat there, went on City Hall when they charged David Dinkins, the New York City Police Department did during the strike that they had. When you're black, you're going to have to confront those issues, but you have to live with yourself. You make the right decisions. You don't let the media sway you. What is right, what is wrong, and you make decisions just like that.
Mr. Taylor, I'd like to ask you something here based on your flyer. Working against predatory lending in our community, what does that mean as someone if they was trying to get a home?
We have people that sit back and let predatory lenders come in and take some of the weakest, our constituents and homeowners with some of the weakest credit scores there are, and just give them these balloon loans and astronomical figures on these credit, and knowing good and well they cannot pay it back. Delta Funding was one of the biggest crooks and criminals that was involved, was indicted. There was their license and things was taken from, and our elected officials haven't took one position on it. Bedford-Stuyvesant was one of the main communities where Delta Funding landed its spaceship and just assaulted many of our senior citizens with those sort of loans.
So how do you correct that now?
Your elected officials could have put laws in place, could have stopped that. Lawsuits had to be put in place to sue them, to stop. But I'm saying there should be laws on the books to indict these people and put them in jail. Do you realize you got senior citizens right now has lost their homes?
But again, it sounds like you're referring back to Al Van.
I am referring back to Al Van because they were on the ship. They were there for 30 years.
Were they sharing any part of that housing that they had to deal with that?
They are responsible. They are state lawmakers. They see these things happening and taking place. They know what's going on in their community. It was on the news. They read the newspaper. It is their responsibility to be informed of what's going on. How can can you go to Albany or City Hall and vote on issues and make laws if you don't know whether you're out of touch and tune with your community?
Okay, on the spot, we'll take a stand on that. How we feel is if you get in office, can you guarantee us that we'll send you a ballot every week on various topics? Can we get you to vote on where you stand so we can find out the same way they vote in the House and everything else, they'd vote? Can we get you to vote on any of these issues?
How do we
so
know?
the people can know where do you stand?
How do we
By
know
the
that
way
you're
I
not
vote
just
on
coming
this-
in another 30 years to set up like Al Van?
Excuse me?
How do we know you're not coming in just to set up another 30 years?
Well, one of the things guys like me did, like myself, what we did, we enforced term limits. We went on the records for it. We fought for it. We campaigned for it. And now in New York City politics, term limits is in place. It's not in Albany, but it's in City Hall. You can only go 2 terms. So we ain't worried about a 30-year racket going on there. Now, in terms of in Albany, it's every 2 years you have an election. And I'll tell you, every 2 years as long as I'm living, he's going to have an election there.
Will you answer our vote?
Yes, I will. I have no problem answering your vote. Matter of fact, my vote is public record. You can go pull the records and you can see exactly how these guys have been voting on these issues.
Okay. We'll be right back. Today you've heard quite a few things from Mr. Taylor. Mr. Taylor, do you have any closing remarks as we close out our show?
First of all, I would like to thank On the Spot for giving me this opportunity to share some of my views, issues, complaints, and values that affect the community in Bedford-Stuyvesant. We need to address those issues that I was talking about. Predatory lending needs to be hit in the head. We need to address those math and reading scores in our community. Affordable housing needs to be addressed in our community. Commercial violation needs to be addressed in our community. On the Spot is on the spot. We're glad to see you guys doing such a beautiful job. And you need to get those characters that we was talking about, Annette Robbs and Al Van. Bring them down here, put them on the spot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Well, it sounds like Mr. Al Van and Miss Annette Robinson, as well as a host of others, have quite a few things to answer for, as well as quite a few people to answer to. If no one else, then Mr. Richard Taylor.